Welcome to the 1953 Formula One season, the fourth season of the pinnacle of motorsport, back when there was great parity between teams and exhilarating fights for the championship. Well, let's hope there's more to be talked about what happened on the track in 1953. After only managing to enter the season finale in 52 with all three cars, Maserati successfully rejoined the championship as a full-time entry this time around, and keeping the 1951 champion Juan Manuel Fangio in their driver lineup. The other notable driver change was the 23-year-old Brit Mike Hawthorne being signed by Ferrari to become the defending champion Ascari's teammate after showing promise and even snatching a podium at his home Grand Prix in the midfield Team Cooper. There were quite substantial changes to the calendar. The season opener in Switzerland would be moved to October, and the French Grand Prix would be moved back to its original venue at Remsgau after a one-year break. Argentina would host its first Grand Prix, and the first Grand Prix outside of Europe for that matter, except for the Indy 500 of course. Thus, the 1953 season would feature a record-breaking 9 races. The Argentine Grand Prix would take place in mid-January in Buenos Aires, a whopping 4.5 months before the following Grand Prix. With many talented racers representing Argentina, including Fangio and Gonzalez racing for Maserati, there was a good chance that an Argentine driver would come victorious at their inaugural home Grand Prix. That, combined with the race being free of charge to spectate, led to the circuit being flooded by Argentinian spectators, with estimates reaching 300,000 to 400,000 spectators. The immense crowd became too big for the small police force to manage, and the security perimeter was broken through. There were spectators standing on the edge of the road across the whole circuit. Despite this, and the concerns raised by the drivers, the race went ahead. Ascari preserved his lead from pole in the first lap, and Maserati's home driver duo were following him. And, as you might expect, the first major safety scare came soon after, on lap 21 of 97, as a wheel detached from a Cooper bounced into the crowd. This didn't faze the spectators, however. In fact, they became more and more daring as the cars flew by right next to them. And just 11 laps later, Nino Farina lost control of his car after he tried to avoid hitting a spectator who jumped in the middle of the road. He spun off and crashed into the crowd on the track side. Various sources claim between 9 and 13 spectators losing their lives as a result of this accident. Amidst the panic, another young kid was struck by another car. The race was turning into a disaster, but somehow it still continued until the full race distance was covered. A few laps later, Fangio was forced to retire due to a broken transmission, which meant that Ascari was now left unchallenged for the win. He finished the Grand Prix a lap ahead of the entire field, with the top 5 being rounded out by the remaining Ferrari and Maserati drivers. Ascari thus extended his consecutive win record from the previous season to 7 races, an unthinkable number in this era of unreliability and danger. This record would remain untouched for more than half a century. Following the Indy 500, Ferrari and Ascari continued their strong run. Ascari won the next 2 races in the Netherlands and Belgium, extending his win streak to 9 in the Grand Prix he contested. Ferrari finished both races with a 1-2, and Maserati came home in a distant third. The tides were soon to turn though, albeit slowly. The next 3 races saw the Maseratis edge closer to Ferrari, particularly in the hands of Fangio. The Argentine finished second in back-to-back races in France, the UK and Germany. The French Grand Prix was particularly close. Fangio had a back-and-forth battle with Hawthorne for the lead for 60 laps. In the race nicknamed the Race of the Century, the duo seemingly overtook each other at every corner throughout the Grand Prix, and the 3rd and 4th places were very close as well. The top 4 reached the checkered flag within only 5 seconds of each other. At the next race in Switzerland, the 3 champions were again at the top. Fangio scored pole position ahead of Ascari and Farina. Ascari overtook Fangio on the opening lap, while Farina fell back. Fangio decided to switch cars with one of his teammates, Felice Bonetto, who seemed to have the better running car that day. This didn't pay off at all, however, as he soon had to retire due to an engine failure. This promoted Farina to second, which then turned to the lead when Ascari himself had a failure. Ascari brought his car back to the pits, and his team attended the car for 11 minutes. But he had built such a lead that he rejoined the race in 3rd place. His pace was extraordinary afterwards too. He overtook his teammates Hawthorne and Farina to take an improbable win. Not only that, he'd opened a gap of more than a minute before the checkered flag fell. Following this decisive victory, which ended up being his last in Formula 1, Ascari clinched his second world championship. Unbelievably, he remains the most recent Italian world champion to this day, and one of only 2 drivers who won back-to-back titles with Ferrari. The season finale in Monza didn't have any championship ramifications, but it had a spectacular finish. Ascari led from pole until the very last lap. He spun in the final corner. His teammate Farina was running in second, and he went off as he took evasive action. Just behind him was Fangio, who said thank you very much and came victorious in the Maserati, marking the first win in Formula 1 for a non-Alfa Romeo or a non-Ferrari car. Ascari concluded the season with 5 victories, 6 pole positions and 4 fastest laps out of a possible 9. Not as dominant as his 1952 run, but still up there nonetheless. With the point system only counting the 4 best results of every driver, similar to previous seasons, he collected 34.5 out of a possible 36 points. I know, slightly peculiar with the half points. This was because he shared the fastest lap at the British Grand Prix with Jose Froilan Gonzalez. Formula 1 seemed adamant about handing out 1 point for the fastest lap in total, and the drivers who'd set the fastest lap would share that single point equally. This was not a rare occurrence, and it had actually already happened in the previous season, since the times were recorded only to the nearest tenth of a second. Surely this wasn't gonna result in some ridiculous outcome sometime soon. So, another dominant display by Ferrari and Ascari in 1953, with a fortunate victory for Maserati to round out the season. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you for the 1954 season.